All right, everybody, welcome to the very first episode of the Battle of Ohio podcast, the podcast where Bengals and Browns fans get together and talk about how awesome our teams are going to be. And the
Yep.
Steelers still suck.
The Steelers still suck.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Battle of Ohio podcast, where we follow the revival of the historic rivalry between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns.
I am drinking a Bud Light Orange, enjoying this wonderful day. The Browns are 3-1. What a wonderful life, right?
Yeah. You know what? We could be 3-1, but okay. But anyway, I'm not going to get too salty here. So basically, this podcast is going to be, that's what it sounds like. We're going to be talking about the Bengals and Browns. I'm a huge Bengals fan. Thomas, a huge Browns fan. And we're going to be talking about the renewal of a rivalry that so long has just been dormant. There's been some big games between us, but the Browns have been irrelevant recently for a long time, and the Bengals last couple of years have been irrelevant for a while.
But it's really exciting what we got going forward. We got both teams got two very young quarterbacks who will have both bright futures. Joe Burrow and Baker Mayfield are around the same age, so there's that. There's a lot of connections through the state through both of these quarterbacks. Joe Burrow being from Ohio, having the blood of Cincinnati, from Athens. Athens is only a 3-hour drive for you guys who don't know from Cincinnati. Baker Mayfield planting the Oklahoma flag on Ohio State's in the middle of the Ohio State, which for us was great because we went to OU, so we went to Ohio University, so we don't really like Ohio State. So,
a lot of Bengals and Browns fans are going to be listening to this podcast. I know a lot of you are probably Ohio State fans. We won't talk about Ohio State too much here.
No Ohio State here.
We're not fans, but we'll try not to talk about that too much.
Yeah,
this is a professional football podcast.
Yeah, we want to care about the pros. But it's exciting seeing what Joe Burrow's doing. He got Joe Mixon behind him. I think the Bengals with that schedule coming up, they can make some noise this year. But we'll get to that. I think they can, but they definitely can make some noise this year. I mean, you got the Ravens, you got the Philadelphia after the Ravens, which is obviously a tough game. You have Indianapolis, which have their defense, and you got the Browns. And y'all can beat the Browns at home. Bengals can easily beat the Browns at home. The Browns aren't proven yet. Tennessee had their issues with their COVID issues, so they're out of practice. Pittsburgh, I still question Ben Roethlisberger's arm. He still haven't proved to me that his arm is fully back yet. You got the Washington football team, which is a beatable team. You got the New York Giants. You got the Miami Dolphins. You have the Dallas Cowboys. So there's actually a path for the Bengals to possibly come back in the season and make some noise for possibly that 7th playoff seed. And keep in mind, there are 7 playoff seeds now in the NFL, so it's a lot easier to make playoffs. So
I'll be honest with you, like the thing that I think the whole AFC North really has going in our favor this year is we're up against the NFC East. I think we all know what's going on there. Like there could be a losing team going to the playoffs in that division this year. And right now it looks like the Eagles, but I think once Washington figures out their quarterback situation, I would love to see Alex Smith, figure it out in there. I think they might end up winning that division once they get their quarterback situation figured out. But like I'll say, this next gauntlet for the Bengals is going to be huge because like you said, Ravens, Colts, Browns, Titans, Steelers, those 5 teams are all potential playoff contenders. And if we can get 2 wins out of that, that's going to be huge for us. If we can get 3 wins, we might be going to the playoffs.
Yep.
But it's the Bengals. Good. So I think we're in Cincinnati. We're mostly talking about playoffs next year, but you never know. Joe Burrow's good enough. But then after that, it's nothing. It's Washington, New York, Miami, Dallas. And then you got Pittsburgh, but then you got Houston. and then finish up in Baltimore. So, I mean, like, after the gauntlet, it's going to get really easy on our end. And the Browns schedule, I believe, y'all got a bit of a gauntlet coming up too. But then you got Vegas, Houston, Philly, Jacksonville, all in a row, and those are all very winnable games for you guys. I like
the Browns schedule. The Browns schedule. I'm sorry. The Browns schedule. The Browns schedule after Pittsburgh lightens up big time. In fact, I kind of Indianapolis got a good defense, but they haven't really played anybody yet. So we're kind of going to figure out how good the Browns are. I'm not going to get too excited about a 3-1 start because, like you said, they're still the Bengals and we're still the Browns. So,
well, I think I remember
the Browns.
It was I forget when it was, but we had a 3-1 start a couple of years ago, and we just completely collapsed and didn't even do anything after that. I think the Browns are built better than that. And I'll tell you one thing, actually. As a Bengals fan, who obviously I grew up not liking the Browns, but I'll be honest with you, Kevin Stefanski, when I heard you guys were hiring him, I got scared because I was like, oh no, finally they got a coach who can come in and actually like reel in the big personalities that are going on. This is a no nonsense type coach. You guys were going to be talking about bringing in Mike McCarthy, and I thought that was going to be a disaster. And so I'm like, yes, Mike McCarthy. But you got Stefanski, and you guys should be excited about that because I think he's going to get Baker on the right track. I think he's going to get your whole team. He's already got your team on a good track, and he's not going to let a lot of the nonsense that guys like Freddie Kitchens just kind of let destroy everything that was going on with your team.
One of the biggest things that I've seen is I went to 7 Browns games last year, and every single Browns game, including the ones that we were winning, Baker Mayfield and Freddie Kitchens were arguing on the sidelines. Every single game. I recently went to a Browns game. Don't want to spoil too much about that yet, but let's just say the chemistry between Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield and the communication between him and the team is almost a night and day difference. It's almost like he has the respectability of this team. Freddie Kitchens did not have the respect of the Browns. He was their buddy, but he was not an NFL coach. Not at all.
Well, not at all. It's kind of like a bit of the opposite amount of good hope, I think, in Cincinnati. Because a lot of people, including you, were telling me before we started recording, a lot of people in Cincinnati really excited about what Joe Burrow can do. He's been lighting it up. I think last week, I don't know if it's still accurate this week, but last week he was ranked as a top 5 quarterback by Pro Football Focus, and that's just something that we haven't seen, like somebody just immediately out of the gates looking great like that in Cincinnati since maybe Carson Palmer, but even then Carson had his inconsistencies that we just haven't seen with Burrow. And then the part that a lot of people are questioning is actually the coaching staff, because I like Zach Taylor. I was actually a big fan of the Zach Taylor hire, and I was saying he was the guy we should target beforehand. But it is accurate that he's showing his inexperience. His play calling isn't always as creative as we expected. His time management is on and off, good. I think he makes good halftime adjustments, but it was the Eagles game. We just kind of knelt on the ball at the end of overtime, and granted, we only had like a few seconds left in the game, but you tell me we can't at least try. Like, you got Joe Burrow, he's not going to throw an interception. I think he's thrown 2 interceptions this year. One was on like a pitch play, and the other was in the end zone to Drew Sample. And you could probably make the argument that Joe Burrow should have thrown it where only Sample could have caught it or nobody could have caught it. But at the same time, most people agree that interception was Drew Sample's fault. So functionally, you could argue that Joe Burrow has thrown 0 interceptions this year. And people in Cincinnati are getting excited about that. And that's actually – that right there is why I brought the idea to you about starting this podcast, because I think you guys have a really bright future ahead of you for the first time. And I've always been the number one Browns doubter of anybody I know. But I think this year it feels different. I like Stefanski. I like Mayfield. You got Myles Garrett on the other side. You got a running game going. And you've always had a pretty good offensive line. So I just think the pieces are finally starting to come together there in Cleveland. The initial pieces are really starting to be put together in Cincinnati. And what I'm really excited to cover in this podcast is watching how both teams kind of come to become the really competitive teams in the AFC North. And I'm not saying that, Baltimore or that other team in the AFC North are.
You talking about Shitbird? I mean, Pittsburgh.
You said it. But I'm not saying they're not going to do anything. I'm not even saying that Lamar Jackson isn't going to be great, or that or like T.J. Watt's doing amazing things with that defense. I question, that team's quarterback situation going forward. But we'll see what happens. Right now, it seems like Ben Roethlisberger is still good enough to play. So
it does.
But it's just like what happens after him. Mason Rudolph clearly isn't the answer. I guess, I thought, maybe they were going to try to I didn't think they were going to get off to quite as hot of a start this year. So I was wondering, what if they end up being available, like having a position where they could trade up and get Trevor Lawrence? And that terrified me. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know who's going to be their next guy, but I know this whole division is going to be competitive for a while because the Steelers are always competitive. The Ravens, they've already built something exciting. The Browns are, the Browns are building something exciting, but they've already got a lot out there to show for it. And the Bengals, I think a lot of people would agree. A lot of media people, a lot of people on YouTube, a lot of fans in general out there agree that if the Bengals can put some, a decent team around Burrow, and right now it's really just the offensive line, and some pieces on defense. And if you can put that around the Bengals, then we're going to be a powerhouse. And this AFC North, I think, is something to watch going forward. So, that's why we agree. This is why we wanted to do this podcast, because these are two exciting teams to cover going forward. But anyway, I think the AFC North is going to be exciting, and that's why we wanted to do this podcast. So, one thing I wanted to get into though was, I don't know. I've got there's a reason why we're Bengals and Browns fan, right? We didn't just one day wake up and I'm going to follow the Bengals and Browns because they seem like they're exciting. No, it's been a lot of pain. It's been a lot of losing and nothing, and y'all got Bud Light, but we didn't even get Bud, Well, y'all didn't lose 19 straight games. And then you got to watch. Then you got to watch Hugh Jackson jump in the what's that river? The Cuyahoga River? Is that what it is? He jumped
in Lake Erie. He already jumped on Lake Erie. He kind of ran to the water, got halfway and splashed like a little kid, and then threw some water.
Well, all we got was Marvin Lewis chuckling at press conferences. Right. Yeah, and we also got Hugh Jackson doing good things here. I promise you, Hugh Jackson was a good coach. He's just a terrible head coach. I mean,
it's a whole different animal being a coordinator and being a coach. He is probably one of the best. He's probably one of the best coordinators.
He was creative though, and he was the only offensive coordinator that I actually liked during the Marvin Lewis tenure.
But I don't think he got a real chance, man, with the Browns.
Honestly, anyway, let's quit rambling about all that. Why don't you tell me about your experience as a Cleveland Browns fan throughout your life? Tell me why you became a Browns fan. Other than just growing up in Cleveland, but tell me what got you to be really passionate about this team. Give me some stories. Tell me about what the last. How old are you? 25?
26.
26.
So I was born February 22nd, 1994. And for you guys who are diehard Browns fans, that is exactly 1 month after the Browns' last playoff win. That's right. I was born 1 month after the Browns' last playoff win, and 1 year before the Browns moved from Cleveland. So I am very connected to the team. I'd never seen the team win for real, honestly, but I'm still a loyal fan of the team. Moved to Cleveland. I lived in Warren, Ohio, which is in Northeast Ohio, and I moved to Cleveland from Warren, Ohio, when I was 4 years old. And my stepfather was a huge Browns fan, and he's the one who got me into being a Browns fan. And I just grew up loyal and passionate about my team when I grew up in the city of Cleveland. As I grew up in Cleveland, I love the Cavs, any of the Browns. I love everything about them. I root for the team. I go to as many games as I can go to. But growing up as a Millennium Browns fan is so hard because they only had one winning season my entire life, or one season when they made the playoffs my entire life, and that's the year that they went to the playoffs in 2001 with Tim Couch, actually Kelly Holcomb, and they lost that playoff game against the Steelers. I was 7 years old watching that game. I remember that game. It was hard. It was hard to swallow. Just naming all the quarterbacks that we had that I thought they were good. I thought Derek Anderson was the one. I thought Colt McCoy was going to be great. I thought Brady Quinn had some potential. I thought that but that's it. Both of them looked like bums from the beginning. I thought Brandon Weeden, maybe 30-year-old Brandon Weeden, but
No. I remember, not to cut you off, but I remember when the Browns drafted Brandon Weeden, and my dad, my dad grew up when the Bengals and Browns were both, relevant teams and had this big, huge, that was one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL going. And when y'all drafted Brandon Weeden, my dad texted me. He was like, "The Browns drafted Weeden? Are you serious? That's fucking hilarious."
It is freaking hilarious, man. Yeah. I think the funniest thing about it though is years, right? The funny thing about being a Browns fan, Cleveland had 5 world championships played in this city, 4 NBA finals, and 1 World Series have all been played in Cleveland since 2015, right?
Yeah.
Browns since 2001 been to the playoffs, just the playoffs once. The Cavs been to 4 NBA finals. The Indians been to the World Series, and we go back to 95. We go all the way back to 95, right? Or 94 when the Browns had their last playoff win. Since the Browns' last playoff win, right? Since the Browns' last 1 playoff win, the Cavaliers have won 7 NBA Finals games. The Indians came within 1 game of winning the World Series twice. In fact, that's 3 World Series and 5 NBA Finals since 1994. So it's not the city. It's not the city. In a sport where a small town is supposed to be good in football, the Browns only made the playoff, only won a playoff game once since 1994, while the other 2 teams in the city have been to the finals 7 times. It just speaks to how bad. Never mind. But it's been hard being a Browns fan. I'm not gonna get into that. I'm not gonna. I get spend a whole hour talking about how bad the Browns are. But I'm gonna say this.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say this. But since 2018, since 2018, it's been a lot of fun being a Browns fan since 2018. Even last year was a lot of fun to me. Baker Mayfield, we got Baker Mayfield. I was at that game. Baker Mayfield's first game. You know about the beer fridges and everything. Yeah, I've never been in a louder football atmosphere than when Baker Mayfield came in that game and he electrified that stadium. Because what happened was he comes in, and I was at that game, and I remember Tyrod Taylor got hurt. Nobody realized he had a concussion. But you're watching the game, Baker Mayfield comes in and he commands that huddle immediately. You knew you was gonna win, and he's throwing darts right off the bat. And I watched him win that game. I watched him 2 weeks later beat Baltimore, Joe Flacco's Baltimore Ravens. In fact, Baker Mayfield pretty much ended Joe Flacco's career. Nobody talks about that. But I watched him beat Joe Flacco 2 weeks later. And I seen him make throws in person that I've never seen any other Browns quarterback make. And even last year, seeing Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and Myles Garrett on this team, Nick Chubb on this team, watching this team is a lot more fun. Even when they lose, it's still fun to watch. Because that's the Steelers game when Myles Garrett hit Mason Rudolph with a helmet. It's a lot more fun being a Browns fan now than it was in the early 2000s, because in the early 2000s, you had nothing to root for. At least we got talent right now. And right now, they're 3-1. Hopefully, they don't blow that. I'm not going to get too excited yet, but we are 3-1, so I'm just going to sit back and sip my beer. So tell us about your experience.
Okay, so you talked about how Cleveland has been having some success, just not in football. Except, they've been doing all right this year. But, man, Cincinnati is not a happy sports city. They're just not. Man, okay, so you talk about when you were born and the significance of that date. I was born May 29th, 1992. Just before I was born, a couple of months, I believe December of 1991, we fired Sam Weich, who's arguably the best coach we'd ever had. And he got fired because, Mike Brown's suddenly in charge of the Bengals now, and I'm actually not entirely sure why he fired him. But I guess they didn't agree on whatever, and Bengals fans still won't let him live that down. And then later on, actually also just before I was born, April of 1992 was the NFL draft that year, and we take David Klingler, who, oh boy. The only reason the only reason people don't consider him, I think, the biggest bust in Bengals history is because when we drafted Akili Smith, we had the opportunity to trade that pick to Mike Ditka, who was trying to go get what was his name? The dude with dreads, Ricky Williams. Mike Ditka was trying to go get Ricky Williams for the Saints, and he offered us. It was like that year's entire draft pick, slate, all of it, plus a couple of draft picks from the following year. And we're like, no, we're good. We got Akili Smith. We got that Oregon Duck out here about ready to come up and tear it up in Cincinnati. And oh man, and I know he's not the most popular guy of all time in Cincinnati, but we had Jeff Blake, and he wasn't a horrible quarterback. And we're just, you don't think we can use 10 draft picks, but I'm rambling. I was talking about Klingler. Klingler, we basically just drafted him number pretty high. Let's see, number 6 overall. We drafted Klingler number 6 overall, and it was just a whole lot of nothing. Now he sort of suffered from the same stuff that made David Carr a bust, in that we had no offensive line. The team was terrible around him. And, we basically, he wasn't that great, but we also didn't really give him any chance to be great. I think a lot of people were worried about when Joe Burrow was coming out, people were worried we're going to do it to him what we kind of more or less did to David Klingler, although I don't think David Klingler was that great in the first place. But anyway, point being, Sam Weich gone, David Klingler gone, and in '93, we trade Boomer Esiason away to the New York Jets. And he does come back at the very end of his career. But that whole decade, the 90s, man, it was just horrible. Nothing. And that was when I was coming up. So I was seeing this team that was terrible, couldn't do nothing. There's no reason to root for this team. Except my dad was a huge Bengals fan. He was coming up, and I think he texted me the other day. I want to say it was 1974 was the first year he was really interested in sports. And the Reds won the World Series. The Bengals made the playoffs. And then going forward, in the 80s, they went to 2 Super Bowls and, got him really hyped. He had season tickets by the 90s. And I want to say by 97 season, probably, when I would have been 5 years old, I started going to games with him. And I actually think that was it, because that's when Boomer Esiason, where was that 98? Boomer Esiason came back at one point, and I was going to the games with my dad at that point. Me and him would go to every single game. And that really put an impression on me. It's just like, is this team any good? No. Does this team have any hope going forward? Doesn't look like it right now, but they're my team. And I'm going to root for my team. Getting older, I identify more in the city I was raised with. And, oh boy, the city I was raised with.
Well, Boomer Esiason. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, like you say, you've had championships and playoffs and et cetera in Cleveland outside of the Browns. We haven't. The Reds made the playoffs this year. I think they made the playoffs in 2012 or 15. I don't remember. I don't really follow baseball. But the Reds made the playoffs a couple of times, just like the Bengals made the playoffs from 2011 to 2015. They also made it in 09 and 05, but lost every single one of those games. The Reds haven't won a playoff game since 1994. We just got a new MLS team, and they are just historically awful. It's just like they're an expansion team, and you kind of have to give them a little bit of slack for that. But seriously, how many 3-0 defeats can we just go through before we start being like, this team is terrible? So I don't know, man. Cincinnati, there's history. There's the Big Red Machine. There's the '80s Bengals. There's reasons. We had Oscar Robertson here back when we had a basketball team. There were reasons in the past to maybe think that Cincinnati is a worthwhile sports town, but it has just been so empty since I've been born, and it's cursed as being a millennial Bengals fan, I guess.
Well, you did have the Reds in the 90s. They have that, right?
Well, yeah, they did win a World Series, but again, that World Series happened a year before I was born.
Yeah, so I got you. So I haven't really done a lot to cheer about. The Reds are interesting. Love that stadium though. The Bengals though, I think the Bengals the future for the Bengals is so bright. I just think Joey Burrow is that special. Well, he reminds me of Andrew Luck. He reminds me a lot of Andrew Luck. You know how Andrew Luck came into the NFL and he was just so smart. Well, so ahead of everything.
Actually, speaking of that Andrew Luck comparison, one thing that I do notice that's actually really remarkable about Joe Burrow in relation to Andrew Luck is back in the day, my parents had NFL Network. They still do, but I don't live there anymore. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, the sound effects would be playing, and you hear Andrew Luck out there he'd be getting pummeled because the Colts did not take care of him. But every time he got pummeled, he'd say something, "Oh man, that was a great hit! Oh man, you sure rocked me!" And I don't hear too much of Joe Burrow saying "Oh, that's a great hit, man." But he's out there he's getting hit, he's talking trash right back, just yeah, and he just
gets back up though.
He gets back up. He seems really excited to get hit, which I don't know if that's all that encouraging, but that mentality is kind of encouraging. It's just this kid loves football, and he doesn't just love. I love football. I love the X's and O's. I love watching the teams. I love analyzing them. I love breaking them down. But man, I tried playing football, and ouch, ouch. I couldn't do it. I couldn't I kind of liked hitting other people, but I didn't like getting hit, and can't have that if you're going to be a football player. So.
All right, can we talk about the Cincinnati Bengals next game? Play the Ravens. Lamar Jackson is hurt. So we're getting mixed reviews. We're getting some saying that it's a sickness, some saying it's a knee injury.
Well, yesterday during the injury report that came out yesterday was that Lamar Jackson had a knee injury, and that's what Adam Schefter reported. They said, "Oh, it's not considered serious," and everybody was like, "Okay, he'll just be back in practice tomorrow." But like you said, he wasn't back in practice today, and they reported it as an illness today. So I'm not saying we questioned a lot about what was going on with Randy Bullock's injury. I'm not questioning what's going on with Lamar Jackson's injury. All I'm saying is I couldn't tell you what's actually keeping him off the field right now, but it is interesting.
Well, we're in a season where we're seeing lots of injuries, especially the running backs.
Yeah.
And I don't. Okay, first of all, I want to go on the record and saying I do not wish injury on anybody. Mm-hmm. But I will say this about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a phenomenal player. But most of all, the reason why Lamar Jackson is so great is because of his athleticism. And we have this stigma when it comes to black quarterbacks. Black quarterbacks are running quarterbacks and last in the NFL. Now, I don't want to be the one who says that. Now, what I will say this though is quarterbacks who run more get hit more, and it takes more tackles and they take more wear and tear on their body. So usually running quarterbacks like the Mike Vicks, the Cam Newtons of the world, their lifespan in their prime mirrors more of the prime lifespan of a running back instead of what a quarterback lifespan is. So instead of their prime being their early 30s, their prime is like their mid 20s. And instead of them being able to do what they can until 38, 39, when they start to hit 30, they start to kind of lose that explosiveness and that speed. So for somebody like Lamar Jackson, who takes these hits, who plays in an AFC North, I got a question: how long can he do this physically? Because how much can a human body take? And people want to watch and go like, "Oh, you're just a bitter Browns fan because you got Baker Mayfield who doesn't run. You got Lamar Jackson who's fast." It's like, yeah, well, that's true. Lamar Jackson is fast and athletic, and I like that. He's fun to watch, yes, but let's be realistic for a minute. How long can you take those hits? And I think, and Cam Newton took those hits over and over and over again, and he didn't get injured until he started to near that 30 mark. And as soon as he hit 30, his shoulders start to go out, his knees start to go out. He starts to have these injuries. He missed back-to-back seasons. Next thing you know, he got to take a half season off to go play with the Patriots, and he got to reinvent his style of playing. So, similar to Lamar Jackson, the future isn't told, but I do question how many of these hits can Lamar Jackson take on a short and off season where running backs are getting hurt like crazy, and Lamar Jackson is essentially a running back quarterback hybrid.
Well, that is a good that is a good point about Lamar Jackson in the long term. The way that I've seen him play, he seems to be good about even as a scrambling quarterback who does a lot of running, does a lot of moving around and stuff. I don't know if he also seems to protect himself a little bit more than I've seen quarterbacks of his scrambling, whatever. It just he seems better suited towards a certain amount of protecting himself than I've seen from other quarterbacks. This might be, running backs typically break down after 30. We might see that, Lamar Jackson might not be the same player when he's 30 that he is now. He might be a short-lived quarterback. I think right now it's, okay, but it is interesting about that
early 20s.
Knee injury. I don't know what's going on with that. One thing I will say is I was looking at the Ravens last last 4 games. They're 3-1, and the one loss came against the Chiefs. And I mean, you could look at their schedule and be like, oh, they're so dominant. They, the one team they lost to was the Super Bowl champions, who still look like Super Bowl champions, and that is true. But I think what I noticed about Lamar Jackson is that if you can, he is most vulnerable as a passer. He's a great passer, great runner. But the thing is, especially with the Bengals defense, just really bad against rushing games, and always have been bad. We've never been able to figure out running quarterbacks. Like Cam Newton used to kill us constantly as a member of the Panthers. So I don't know how much I buy that the Bengals are just going to slow down the Ravens running game. But if they can put the right coverages out there. If Jesse Bates, our safety, is having a breakout season, if they can fluster him as a passer, hopefully maybe we can get a little bit more pressure than we've been getting in the pass rush. If they can fluster him as a passer, I think they can create opportunities for big takeaways, or at least putting the Ravens off schedule, at least on the passing game. And if you do that, you give Joe Burrow a chance. And if you give Joe Burrow a chance, he's gonna break your heart.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, if y'all win this game, y'all 2-2. Y'all 2-2. Think about that.
Well, we're 2-2-1.
Yeah, but y'all 2-2-1, and y'all have some winnable games in that schedule. Yeah. So I mean, I think that game is. I think y'all can win that game. I ain't gonna tell anybody to bet money on that game right now.
I think we can win that game. Last year, actually, we took the Ravens pretty close.
Yeah. Well, the Ravens. I'm just looking at Lamar Jackson's stats over the last 2 games. After that Chiefs game, the Chiefs looked like they kind of got in his head. He had 97 yards passing. These are his yards passing. 97 yards passing with a 53% completion percentage. And last game against the Washington football team, who had a okay defense, who had a solid front line with Chase Young in them. He only had 66. He had 66% completion percentage, but he only had 193 yards. He had 2 touchdowns and an interception. He still had a quarterback rating of 107, but it seems to me like you said, if you kind of force him to pass and you take away his running ability, he kind of gets antsy in the pocket sometimes. So it's important to try and take away his options. The thing is about the Ravens is the whole culture of the Ravens. The reason why the Ravens are so good is Harbaugh did a great job of building that team. He did a great job of idiot-proofing that team, basically. He made that team. He just basically made that team where he got everything complements Lamar Jackson around. It's kind of like LeBron James when he first played in Cleveland. Every single one of LeBron James' teams have shooters around him. So when LeBron James drives and everybody commits to him driving, he can kick it out to a shooter. Well, that's kind of how the Ravens are built. Lamar Jackson has these great running backs behind him. He has a great offensive line. He has a good tight end. He has good receivers. So basically, he has a team that's pretty much idiot-proof for him. So he could release the ball fast, and if he have an opening, he could run. So he have opportunity to run. He has a great tight end who could block for him and catch, and he has he just put in position to succeed. So what you got to do is you just got to make this man uncomfortable. It's just like anybody. It's just like wealthy people, right? You know how you're in college and you see these wealthy kids in college, right? But as soon as they get mildly uncomfortable, they break down. Well, Lamar Jackson throughout his whole time in the NFL have had an embarrassment of riches. He came into a very good organization. He came into a very good system. He had everything good for him. But anytime he feels adversity, this man never won a game when he fell behind. He never won a game when he fell behind. Where's my mic at so I could yell that into the mic? He never won a game when he fell behind, which means just like those rich kids at OU, just like any other rich kid, if you make them just slightly uncomfortable, they start to break down. So, hot take. This is Lamar just piling on the NFL MVP session. I'm surprised out of Cleveland, Ohio.
Version of a rich kid, basically.
He is, and we talk about these quarterbacks, because sometimes these young quarterbacks don't get an opportunity. Some quarterbacks, every quarterback situation is different, right? So you look at a situation like Dwayne Haskins, right? Dwayne Haskins goes to the Washington football team with a terrible offensive line, terrible coaching, terrible environment. They change coaches. They don't have a plan for him, and he's failing. Well, why do you think he failed? Because he comes to a bad environment. It's the same exact thing It's the same exact thing with every single quarterback in the NFL. The same exact thing with rich people. Rich kids, they come up, rich schools, rich parents, rich teachers, and they have every opportunity to succeed. So a lot of times, these quarterbacks who have potential to be good don't have the opportunity to showcase their talent because they're brought up in a bad system. Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph won 7 games last year behind the Steelers. Why? Because the Steelers have a great organization. The Steelers have a system for him. They brought him out right, and they had everything in place. So all Mason Rudolph had to do was just plug in and play. When you look at people like Joe Burrow, we look at people like Baker Mayfield. When we look at people, we look at players who come to these bad situations, who come to these bad teams, who have 2 or 3 coaches the first 2 years, or 2 or 3 systems the first 2 years. Of course, it's harder for them to learn the system. So they get exposed earlier than somebody like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson did not have a lot of adversity in a regular season because he is coached by a 2-time Super Bowl winning head coach. And so he never had to worry about much adversity in the regular season. But like I said, he never won a game when he started off behind. So y'all get some early touchdowns on this kid. Y'all might be able to beat him. There's a chance y'all can beat him.
I think it's possible. Like I said, last year, I think the first game that we played with the Ravens, the second game we got slaughtered. That wasn't. I think that might have been the game. I could be wrong, but I think the second game was the one where that infamous like the spin move that just like
nasty.
Like I said before, the reason why Nick Vigil is in LA now, because he was the main one who really got the brunt of that spin move and that. He's the most worst one anyway. But the other game that we played with them, it was 23-17. We kind of some say that it wasn't really as close as it looked like because we got a touchdown near the end. But 17-23 or 23-17, whichever way you want to put it. For the team that a lot of people were picking to be Super Bowl winners that year. Look, I'm not saying that the Bengals are world beaters or that they're going to take down the Ravens because I'm so excited about the fact that we beat the Jaguars, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But the Ravens last year, we took them down to a 1-score game. And I know it wasn't, near the end, it was like, it was 23-10 up until we got a really, really late touchdown, but it was also at the half. It was 17-10. So I'm not saying we were going to beat them, but I'm saying we took them close enough that I think now that we have, truly elite level quarterback play by rookie standards.
Yeah, he's a beast.
I think that we have that opportunity, but let's go ahead and move on to a quarterback who, quite the opposite of what the point you were making about Lamar Jackson was, a quarterback who's faced a lot of adversity in his career, and Phillip Rivers, now with the Indianapolis Colts and coming up against the Cleveland Browns this week. I'll give you a couple personal thoughts about that real quick, and then I'll let you, as the Browns fan, go ahead and talk about it. But I think the Browns have a decent shot to win this game. I believe in Baker Mayfield. I believe in Kevin Stefanski. I will say, though, the Colts have the best defense in the NFL right now.
Yeah,
and I think as Baker Mayfield goes, the Browns are going to go. Myles Garrett is going to – I think he's going to get on Phillip Rivers, but, Phillip Rivers has a lot of experience with adversity. He was on some bad San Diego Chargers teams. And
some bad ones, yes.
So I think the Browns can win this game, but it's really going to require Baker Mayfield keeping a cool head, and it's going to require, that Browns defense really getting after Rivers, I think.
All right, so I'm going to go. I think Phillip Rivers is Phillip Rivers. His arm strength might not be the same. He's a little older. He's 38, obviously, so obviously he doesn't have the same tools that he had when he was younger, back in 2003. But he's still completing 72% of his passes this year. Mm-hmm. Still very accurate. He's still very smart. He's not going to light up the scoreboard I think the key for the Browns is to make sure Philip Rivers, passes a lot, because when he passed a lot against the Jaguars, they got away from the run. They kind of got away from the game plan. And Philip Rivers and the team struggled, and they lost to the Jaguars.
Well,
so this team is very.
The thing about Philip Rivers is, you're right. If you can force him to pass a lot, just because of the way that he plays, he's bound to make some pretty severe mistakes. If you make him a lot.
But to his defense, though, I give that first week of the NFL a wash, because that was the first game they played physical. In fact, the first 2 games were really a wash, to be honest. Like, they had no preseason. So he had a new system, a new team, a new city, and of course he's gonna lay an egg the first game. So that's predictable. So we don't ever give football players the human element. So Philip Rivers, when it came to big moments, he made big passes. He only completed 55% of his 50% of his passes last game against the Bears. So that's quite alarming. But that defense, man. That defense. And so we're gonna, like you said, we're gonna really see how what Baker Mayfield is made of to the next game. I think now that Baker Mayfield has had 4 games on his belt in his new system, his confidence should be up. The kid is accurate. I think the kid does got an arm and everything. But I think this game is going to be a toss-up, because neither of these teams really beat anybody. Like, who have either of these teams beat? Although the Bears are pretty, the Bears are looking pretty good this year. I don't really consider the Bears that good of a team. I don't know.
Well, definitely not now. I'll be honest. Yeah. It's interesting. Everybody was talking about how terrible Trubisky is, but they were undefeated when Trubisky was on the field. Just saying.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm just looking at these teams that Colts beat. They beat the Jets, the Vikings, and the Bears. And Bears, the Bears, to their credit, they're not bad. They're a pretty solid team, but they haven't really beat anybody that really moved the needle. And neither have the Browns, really. The best team the Browns beat the Cowboys, and we all know the story about the Cowboys. Yeah. So I think yeah. So I think this game is a toss-up. But I'll probably have to lean towards Philip Rivers over Baker Mayfield this game, because he has the experience. So I think it's going to be a very close game. You got the best offense versus best defense. So that's pretty exciting. We're going to see, man. I think the X factor of this game is not Baker Mayfield, but I think the X factor of this game is Kareem Hunt. I think if Kareem Hunt has a big game this game, which he's very capable of having, that's one thing. That's why I didn't really sweat it when I know Nick Chubb is amazing, but you still have Kareem Hunt, and Kareem Hunt did just win a rushing title just a couple of years ago, and Kareem Hunt is no joke. So
do you think the Browns will win
this weekend?
Yeah.
Ooh. I honestly do not know. I know it's like nobody want to hear that. I honestly don't know, because if I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I don't really know how good this team is exactly. So I attended the game against the Cowboys. I attended the game against the Cowboys, and the first 3 quarters, they looked like a Super Bowl team. The way they got to a huge lead against the Cowboys. In fact, there was never a moment this year, with the exception of the first game against the Ravens, which, like I said, I give that first week a wash, because every team should get a wash the first week, because the first week is the first week. But with the exception of the game against the Ravens, every single time I watched the Browns offense play, I thought, oh, yeah, this team can score. But every single time I watched the defense, I had to hold my breath, because although they got Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and that great front line, those cornerbacks and that safety, they kind of give me anxiety. So I know we had a lot of injuries, but that defense for the Browns haven't really been a juggernaut this year. Even though they lead the league on turnovers, you can't live and die on turnovers. You gotta live and die on stops. We gotta get stops. So I don't know. I just don't know how good this team is. We're gonna figure out next 2 games though.
I'll be honest with you. To make it much easier on my end, I do not think the Bengals are going to beat the Ravens. I think the Ravens are really hot right now. They just beat up on the Washington football team. Now they were mad. I've heard people talk about maybe this could be a trap game coming up, and I sure hope so. But I'm not saying the Bengals can't win, and I definitely think they'll cover that 14-point spread. But do I think they will win? I don't necessarily, but man, I'll tell you what, I think they can, and I think it's going to be a fun game to watch no matter what happens.
I think the Ravens got. I think I'm going to agree with you. I think the Ravens want to have that game. I think the Ravens going to win probably by. I get the Ravens a touchdown. I think the Bengals are going to keep it close and competitive. I think Burrow's going to keep it close and competitive. But I think the Ravens. I think they desperately feel like they need to win the division this year because they feel the other three teams. This right now is the toughest division in football. No doubt, the AFC North is the toughest division in football.
If the Bengals can get their crap together, then
they will.
Right, I think they will. But if they do, there's not a weak spot in this division. Every team is tough. Every team is going to be battling it out, and somebody is going to miss the playoffs and then watch, a 7-9, 6-10 team in the NFC East make it and be like, but.
Yeah,
we're going to be the ones who are pissed off, The
Bengals should be 2-2 right now. I should have won that game against the Eagles.
Well, I think
won that game against the Eagles. In fact, I should have won
the game against the Eagles. If the defense does anything against Carson Wentz at the very end of regulation, then the Bengals win that game. If Randy Bullock doesn't kick the ball out of bounds, then that's a much longer field for Carson Wentz to go. I think the Bengals win in regulation. But you could also say, honestly, the only decisive loss I think we've had this year is against you guys, against the Browns. And even that ended up being a 1-point game or a 1-score game.
Because, Joe Burrow is driving that ball downfield. And, look how he played since that game, too. Look how his confidence, he just gets better and better every game. And one thing, and, the Bengals, that offense scares me. You got Tyler Boyd and AJ Green. Those are two great receivers. Tyler Boyd is very explosive, and then you have AJ Green on the other side, and AJ Green is AJ Green. And AJ Green's trying to get his confidence back. Now you got Joe Mixon getting his confidence back, AFC Player of the Week. And they're rallying behind Joe Burrow. That offense can score against any defense in the league. And once they start getting going, watch out. Watch out, man. Watch out.
In particular with the receiving core. Now, Joe Burrow, we've been talking about him this whole time. Joe Burrow looks like he's fantastic, and that's super awesome. The receiving core is confusing because, you were talking about A.J. Green a few minutes ago. And, A.J. Green's A.J. Green, but A.J. Green does not look like A.J. Green right now. He looks slow. He looks like he looks lost out there. He doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. And honestly, I'm kind of worried about him. Now, I do think he has a role in this offense, and I actually heard Dave Lapham, our radio analyst. I believe he's the color commentator next to Dan Horde, who's the play-by-play guy.
Okay.
But he was basically saying that AJ Green does still have a bit of a role in that he still soaks up double coverage. Your defense, anybody's defense isn't going to just let AJ Green go uncovered during a game because he's still AJ Green. And if you give him an inch, he'll take a mile. But that's the thing. The more things go on like this, the more AJ shows that he just doesn't have what he once had, the more teams are going to start paying attention to the other receivers that we have. Tyler Boyd is having a great season. T. Higgins looked really good against the Jaguars and has kind of been coming up. He's a rookie. The Bengals don't typically utilize rookies a whole lot, but T. Higgins looks like he's got the opportunity to, break out, do something interesting here. Auden Tate, there's been a little bit of weird, inactivity drama with him, but I don't think that really had anything else. I don't think that had anything to do other than the fact that they just wanted to try to give John Ross a shot. And then John Ross didn't do anything, and I don't think John Ross is going to be getting too many more shots. But Auden Tate's going to be getting more shots. And so, you got Boyd, Higgins, Tate right there, and that's a great receiving core. And then eventually people are going to – I was just going to say people are eventually going to start taking their attention off of A.J. Green. And when they do that, boom, to the house. Throw it to A.J. Green because they aren't covering him like they're supposed to. And then, you've got a huge weapon right now. And I don't know if he resigns with the team next year, but you got an opportunity to use him right now. And once teams started getting lax on him, that's a big takeaway that I've been having from A.J. Green's season so far. He didn't look good against the Jaguars. He didn't look good against a lot of people, but he could possibly. He's still got that A.J. Green potential. But it's go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at a play right now of A.J. Green against the Jaguars where Joe Burrow rolls out the pocket. Joe Burrow's the pocket collapse. Joe Burrow rolls out of it. He's at the 45-yard line. He throws a very nice pass all the way to the 10-yard line, and AJ Green's quite open. And it almost like he kind of gave up on the play. Exactly. It looks like he kind of when I play sports, it kind of looked like he was kind of hurt and he didn't want to use. His muscle memory was telling him one thing, but his pain was telling him another thing, right?
Well,
he didn't want to do.
That's the thing.
Like he doesn't have full confidence.
AJ Green hasn't played a full season in a long time.
Exactly. So he's probably still rusty.
But the thing is, every time you see him on the sidelines, every time you see him practicing, it's like that guy looks like he's ready to go. But now that he's actually getting out there, he doesn't look like he's been ready to go. Like I was talking about his contract situation coming up, that's going to be taken into account. It's like, are you contributing? And right now, I mean, like I said, he's soaking up coverages, and that's nice, but you can't pay a guy however many $1 million just to soak up some coverages. He's got to be contributing at an A.J. Green level to get A.J. Green money, and he's just not doing that. But enough about A.J. Green. I think, the biggest point of emphasis for us this entire season has been the play of the offensive line. And, boy, did they look at least competent against the Jaguars, which is saying something because they haven't looked competent all year. But they finally looked competent against the Jaguars, and I think I mentioned it earlier. Alex Redmond coming back at right guard. We cut him at the beginning of we cut him before the beginning of the year because he got injured doing martial arts or something like that, and he also wasn't really all that great to begin with. So it's just kind of like, okay, you know what, you had your chance, you're done, get out of here. And we signed Xavier Su'a-Filo from the Dallas Cowboys, I believe, to take that right guard spot. And Su'a-Filo was doing all right at first, and then he got hurt. And, it's been Fred Johnson, it's been Billy Price, and they both looked awful at the right guard position. And then we re-signed Alex Redmond because nobody picked him up because, like I said, the tape is awful on him. So we pick him up and we put him in during the Jaguars game, and he's good enough. He's already got the chemistry with the rest of the offensive line. And, I think Joe Burrow took one sack during the day, but it was like near the end of the game, and it was actually a run. It wasn't really – he wasn't dropping back to pass. He was just – he ran around, he was scrambling, and he didn't quite make it to the line of scrimmage, so it technically counted as a sack. But other than that, they didn't allow a sack the whole game. And they had, Joe Mixon's huge what was it? I think he got FedEx Ground FedEx Ground Player of the Week or something like that.
Yeah, Player of the Week, yeah.
Right. That's that offensive line playing well made a huge difference in our ability to put that win together because Joe Burrow finally had some help. And the defense didn't look great. They haven't looked great all year, but they've been opportunistic. And it reminds me of back in 2005 when the first time, things really kind of started coming together for the Bengals as a franchise in my lifetime. And I remember that defense, it wasn't a top 10, top 5, whatever defense. A lot of people were saying that, we might be, a lot of media people were saying the Bengals could be dark horse Super Bowl contenders, but it was because the offense was going off, not that defense. But the defense could get turnovers. The defense was opportunistic. And that's what this defense looks like. It is an opportunistic defense. And if they can get things consistently going on offense, all that defense needs to be is opportunistic. Just give Joe Burrow a couple of opportunities to win that game, and he will win that game. And that's what we saw against the Jaguars. And the big thing a lot of people have been saying is it's just the Jaguars, But I actually saw one of a YouTuber I follow. His name, his channel name is Flemlo Raps, and he does like what happened to videos on football players. He's always focusing on the human aspect of football, and I really appreciate that. But one thing I also appreciate is he's a Bengals fan. And
I'm looking at the highlights right now. One thing I noticed him is when you're talking about the offensive line, is that you gotta give your coach credit. He was doing creative things to make sure that Joe Mixon has space and Joe Burrow had time. So Joe Burrow, what he does is you see a lot of what he did was you see a lot of times you see the fullback or the running back, I believe that is, coming back and blocking for Joe Burrow just to give him that extra second, and that extra second makes a world difference because Joe Burrow don't really need a lot of time to throw. So Joe Burrow is working with that weak offensive line, and so he's making the offensive line better because he is passing quickly. So the defense don't really have time to really react. Maybe substitution helped too. Well, I think you got to give credit to the creative play calling. Because that defensive line by the Jaguars was getting penetration, but what you see a lot on a lot of these passes, you see him quick throws, misdirection runs, and just creative ways to throw to keep the Jaguars defense off balance so they do not have time to get to the quarterback, it
was really good. And I actually remember what I was going to say now. Like I said, a lot of people were saying the Jaguars aren't any good. It's like, the Bengals won a game, but it was against the Jaguars. Who cares? Well, first of all, the Jaguars looked pretty damn good week 1. They took the Titans like down to a field goal game, I think, in week 2. And then there was the Thursday night game with the Dolphins, and that one was pretty bad. But their defensive line has been awful. That's part of why our offensive line looked good. And I will say that is fair. And it's not like we just beat the Chiefs or anything like that. But like I was saying about Flemlo, I think he made a really good point. It's like, the Jags aren't any good, but we're not any good. We're the Bengals. We just had the number 1 overall pick. Like, any win is a huge win for us. And like, the Jaguars could have beaten us if we had played like the typical Bengals, but we didn't, and a part of that is the quarterback. Part of that is the quarterback going off and having, some time to throw, and the offensive line playing like, an offensive line that, isn't complete crap. Helping Joe Mixon to that huge day, but also helping Joe Burrow out there. Man, if you give him, 3-4 seconds to read a play, it's over. The biggest problem he's been having is he has maybe 1 or 2 seconds to read a play.
Yeah, it looked like Joe Burrow's releasing on ball within a couple of seconds, within 2 seconds. It looked like it's 1-2 throw. Yeah. And like you say, he doesn't have that time to throw the ball. Hopefully that don't rattle him in the future, building his confidence. I gotta say, man, like, it just looked like the Bengals just outcoached the Jaguars for real. When I'm looking at this, well, obviously I didn't watch the game in live speed because I was at the Browns game.
Doug Marrone isn't a particularly, notably great coach. A lot of people have problems with Zach Taylor, but I think like I said earlier, I think Zach Taylor's good at making halftime adjustments. I think Zach Taylor's good at certain kinds of job making halftime. And I think this is an example of where he can outcoach people. He is a pretty good. He's not Pete Carroll. He's not Sean McVay. unfortunately, we thought he was gonna, and that's why we hired him. But he's not the greatest coach of all time, but I think he's a pretty good coach, and I think he's enough. I think he could be our Jim Mora to Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and like I said, we talked about the weapons that Cincinnati have, and I guess the key is how to use Joe Mixon. Man, Joe Mixon is the key to Cincinnati's offense, right? Kind of like what I said earlier about Kareem Hunt. These running backs are valuable. When you have an explosive running back like Joe Mixon or Kareem Hunt, it keeps the defense off balance and gives you a complete another option. But one thing that Joe Mixon does well is that he does a great job of protecting Joe Burrow, and he gives Joe Burrow that extra second, or he gives Joe Burrow that out. So like if he needs to dump or dink a dump to Joe Mixon, he has a very reliable option, and it's dumping it to Joe Mixon. Like you said, the defense got timely stops. They stopped the 2-point conversion that the Jaguars tried to have and come back. And Joe Burrow just made big plays at the end of the game to make sure that you guys keep the lead. But most of all, like I said, Joe Mixon kind of just took the pressure off the team, and he kind of beat up that defensive line. They did a great job of switching up the runs, making sure that they run on Jaguars' weak side, and they did a great job of moving our offensive line around and using our tight ends and stuff. And so I think it's almost like y'all making lemons out of y'all making lemonade out of lemons, right? Y'all trying to make y'all making do with a bad situation with your offensive line, because you're not going to be able to fix your offensive line this year. You got to wait till next year. But you guys are doing a great job of masking that for now. And if Joe Mixon's able to keep on having the 100 rushing yard games, and if Joey Burrow can do a great job of just being accurate and just being fast with that ball, I think that the offensive line struggle is going to become less and less noticeable. But yeah, I mean, honestly though, the credit to that game goes to our coaches. Our coaches did a hell of a job that game, just making sure that there was protection of the quarterback and the running back. Recapping the Browns-Cowboys game. Now that game is interesting for me because the Cowboys actually, there was a point being at that game was crazy because there was a lot of Browns fans that game. The Browns fans traveled. Shout out to the Browns, to the Browns Nation. Proud of you guys. One of the places that fans are allowed to have 25,000 fans, I believe, went to the Cowboys Stadium. But at the very beginning of the game, it seemed like the Cowboys were they had an opportunity to get off to a lead, but the Browns defense had timely stops. I think they were winning 14-7 at one point. But the Browns just kept on running that ball, which was very fascinating. It was very great. They Kevin Stefanski is just such a great coach. Well, early on, he's a great coach. He does a great job of putting Baker in that play action. Baker Mayfield is deadly in that play action. But one thing that just was great was just all the misdirection runs and all the misdirection throws, and the trick play with Jarvis Landry throwing to Odell Beckham, or the trick play with Odell Beckham running for 50 yards. By the way, seeing that play in person was just phenomenal, because if you want to see a fan base get quiet real quick, just go back and watch that run by Odell Beckham Jr. where he buzzed out that 50-yard run against the Cowboys. It was phenomenal. And I think, oh, man, it was just so great. The lady behind me, it was funny, the lady behind me, she was like, oh, Odell Beckham's trash. Odell Beckham, he can't do this. Odell Beckham can't do that. And then he busts a 50-yard run on them. It was great. So so that game was a lot of fun to be at. A lot of offense, a lot of scoring. But the first 3 quarters, like I said, the Browns took care of business. Nick Chubb going down, and them still not losing a beat with their backup running back. I think his name is Johnson. I want to make sure I don't mess up his name real quick. Make sure I pronounce this correct. This is how buried on the Ernest Johnson. So the Ernest Johnson, he was actually in the AAF a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Before the Browns picked him up last year. and you get an opportunity. He's actually at number 2 running back now, ahead of Dante Hilliard. And I like that kid's explosiveness. I like that kid a lot. I think that he has a world of potential. And with Kareem Hunt being running back 1, I don't think the Browns are going to lose a beat. I remember a couple of years ago when Cook went down with an injury for the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings had Murray, and Murray just stepped in and just took off for the Minnesota Vikings while they had Cook on the sidelines. So I think the Browns. So I'm not terribly concerned about the Nick Chubb injury. Obviously, Nick Chubb, one of the best running backs in the league. Hopefully, he gets well soon. But I think that Kareem Hunt and the Dearness Johnson could really keep this team afloat. And it's great to see Odell Beckham healthy again. Odell Beckham, he had surgery over the offseason, and he looks very healthy. So, after talking with you, after thinking about it, and after going over how the Jaguars beat the Colts, I think the Browns. I'm gonna go with the Browns this weekend. I think the Browns will win this game this weekend. I think the Browns will win this game this weekend. And the defense is getting more healthy. And I think after that game against the Cowboys felt like a change in the guard. It felt like the Browns are finally starting to get some momentum, and they're finally starting to go back, and they're finally starting to go in the right direction. So with all that said, I'm gonna go with the Browns this weekend. Over the Colts, 28-21, and I'm gonna go Ravens over Bengals. And I like the idea of it being a close game. I think the Bengals are going to keep it close because those division rival games are always close. I'm going to go with the Bengals. I'm going to go with the Ravens. I'm going to go with a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be Ravens 33, Bengals 28.
Huh. So, I can see that. Our if our defense really collapses the way it has in certain weeks, in particular against the way that the Ravens like to play football, I could totally see them dropping 33 on us. My hope is really just that, like I said earlier, I think the key to beating the Ravens is just making Lamar,
making that quarterback uncomfortable.
Lamar is a good thrower, but I think if you can fluster Lamar, then which is going to be a challenge for us in our lack of pass rush. But if you can fluster Lamar, you can make him make mistakes, and then our defense can capitalize on those mistakes. And then it's at that point, it's just about the offensive line giving Joe Burrow enough time to work on offense. And the Ravens don't really have the best pass rush either. Despite just going out and stealing Calais Campbell, it hasn't been coming together for them.
Another thing the Ravens struggled with the last 2 years is stopping the run. So let's see if the Bengals keep the game close and they can get they give Joe Mixon some big runs, then watch out. I think the Bengals could turn a lot of heads this weekend. They got nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. There's nothing scary in the NFL than a team with nothing to lose. They got nothing to lose. They got nothing to gain. If everybody's saying they're going to be good next year, I mean, like Joe Burrow, he's getting better and better every game. I think it's going to be a closer game that people won't give credit for. I think the Bengals are going to keep it close. I think the Ravens with their experience, going to win it. But, man, I think it's going to be a real close game. I think that game in 2 weeks with the Browns play the Bengals is going to be a real close game, too. In fact, I might even pick the Bengals in 2 weeks, depending on what happens over the next couple of weeks. Because I honestly think the Bengals can make a lot of noise this weekend.
I'll be honest with you. Like, before the season started, I came out and I said, I think the Bengals are going to be 8-8 this year. That's what I was feeling. I went through every single game and I picked win-loss. I didn't just look at the schedule like, oh, that's 8 wins, that's 9 wins, that's whatever. I went through every single game of the whole NFL season. I was like, this is, who's going to win this game, this game, this game, this game. I think so far I've been mostly right, actually. I figured that they would well, I wasn't right about the tie. That was pretty ridiculous. I actually thought that they were against the Eagles. I thought that they were going to start out. I did figure they were going to lose to the Chargers. I actually thought we were going to beat the Browns, and that didn't happen. I did not see them tying the Eagles, but I did think they were going to lose to the Eagles. And then I figured the Jaguars would be a win. So I thought we would be starting the season 2-2 after a bit of a rocky start in LA. And not so great game against the Eagles, but I thought the Eagles were going to be a lot better than they ended up being this year. And then there's a lot of tough games on our schedule, but I think too. I mean, there's no easy game in the NFL, but we got the NFC.
No, y'all got some easy games. Y'all got the Colts. I think y'all can beat the Colts. I think the Browns are going to spoil the Colts a lot.
Yeah,
y'all can beat the Colts. I got us. Like I said, Tennessee, man. I don't think Tennessee is going to be mentally all the way there because of their situation with COVID. So that's a winnable game. We're going to see by November. We're going to see how good Pittsburgh really is and how healthy Ben Roethlisberger is. Washington's a winnable game. New York's a winnable game. Miami's a winnable game. Dallas is a winnable game. Houston's a winnable game. So they very possibly can go 8-8. They very possibly can go 8-8. I'm looking at, like, right off the bat, I'm looking at 5 winnable games for them. They possibly can go 8-8. I think they at least win 6. I think they're gonna upset one of these teams. In fact, I think they're gonna upset one of the teams in the division. I do not think they're gonna go 0-6 in our division. I think they're gonna go 2-4 in our division.
I actually one of the games that I actually picked, which was a pretty big upset, and a lot of people are going to call me crazy for saying this, but one of the games I picked the Bengals to get them to that 8-8 final record was actually we play the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday night. And historically, that's been the kind of game that we just don't show up for, and the Bengals are terrible at, and especially at quarterback, it's just been a whole lot of nothing. But, man, I think Joe Burrow is – if we've got the team humming by then, which it seems like we're kind of working toward that every week, if we've got the team humming, I think Joe Burrow is going to show up for Monday night, and that's going to be such a boost for Bengals fans. And I think they can beat the Steelers. I don't I had them being swept by the Ravens in my predictions. Like I said, I do think they can win this week. I don't think they will, but if they do, I won't be that surprised. But if they don't, then I think there's a pretty good chance that they might beat them in week 17. But like I said, my prediction at the beginning of it all was that we were just going to get swept by the Ravens. I thought we were going to swap games with the Browns and the Steelers.
I want to agree with you with that Steelers game. I got that game circled right. I was actually looking at the schedule. Excuse me. I knew you were going to say that because they are playing the Steelers Monday night. Joe Burrow's first Monday night game. Yeah, I think he's going to show up that game. I think that game is very winnable. In fact, I think both Steelers games are winnable.
Mm-hmm.
I emoji. First Steelers game is after a bye. Is after a bye. So let's let's play devil's advocate. Let's say I do beat Tennessee in November 1st. Let's say Tennessee still haven't really got back, never really got back from the whole COVID issue. And they finally got the whole team back. They're finally starting to practice, but they're not really in a good vibe with each other. And y'all somehow beat Tennessee. Ooh, that's Sunday, November 15th.
Yeah.
That game against the Steelers, y'all might be able to, coming off a bye week, coming off 14 days of preparing for the Steelers, y'all might be able to beat them. But also, like you said, these rookie quarterbacks, they get better as the season goes on. So by December 21st, Monday night, I got to go with that upset too. At home with fans, the fact that we're allowed to have fans, and hopefully by then the governor released more restrictions for allowing fans in the stadium. I gotta go with you on that one. That could be an upset game.
So cool. If they win that game and I could actually attend, that would just that would be worth the whole season, right? That would be worth all of last season. How bad last season was to all lead up to that. Man, like I said, as a Bengals fan, that would just that would be the icing on top of the Joe Burrow cake.
Oh yeah, and Pittsburgh sucks anyway.
What are your impressions of them so far? Because for me, I don't know. I buy the Ravens. I think the Chiefs exposed them, a way to beat them. But I think other than that, the Ravens look like a really good team. I'm not so sure I buy the Steelers because, like, I mean, they played the New York Giants, Denver Broncos, the Houston Texans. Some of the worst teams in the league. The Broncos were supposed to be good this year, but then they had all those injuries, and they are not. And the only game they won by more than a touchdown was the Giants in Week 1, 26-16. But they have not been. I don't know. They're undefeated. You can't say anything about that. They're definitely undefeated. There's no two ways about that one. But I have not been convinced by any of their wins so far. They got the Eagles coming up, and that's not anything particularly special. I think they're gonna actually have a rude awakening when they play the Browns in Week 6. And I think I could be wrong, but I think you guys are going to hand them a day. I think the Browns are going to destroy the Steelers in Week 6.
I think the Steelers have been product of an easy schedule. So I completely agree with you. I 1,000% agree with you. Yeah. I'm looking at the schedule. The Steelers, who do they play? You play the Giants, right? Yeah. Daniel Jones. Big whoopee do, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. All right. So then Saquon Barkley doesn't do anything in that game. Defense was impressive that game against Saquon Barkley, I guess. Whatever. They only beat them. They beat them by 10 points. But then they played Denver, right? They played Denver at home. They only win by 5 against Denver.
Was Denver still playing Drew Lock at that point, or had he already gotten hurt?
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure they're still playing Drew Lock, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So they played Denver. Denver is 1-3 right now. They're in the AFC West. And then they play Houston, who's 0-4 right now, who fired their coach. So
because the coach was such a cancer, and even then the Texans played him close.
So the Steelers have beat 3 out of probably 7 of the worst teams in the NFL. Yeah. That's who they beat. And you know what? The teams that they beat are actually worse than the teams that the Browns and the Bengals beat, actually. Because I think that the Cowboys and the Washington football team, and even the Bengals, are better teams than every single one of the teams that the Steelers beat. The Steelers have literally played nobody but very good college football teams.
I think that Pittsburgh pass rush is going to keep them, like, when they do start playing good teams. Like I said, after the Eagles, they got the Browns, they got the Titans, which they were supposed to already play, but that's a whole other thing. They got the Ravens, the Cowboys, they got the Bengals, Jaguars. Oh my God, they might make the playoffs this year just based on the schedule. What is this? They play nobody except for AFC North teams. And then
they literally played nobody.
Yeah, I mean their schedule is even easier than ours. Like, I mean,
the hardest team they play outside of the hardest team that they play outside the division. I was gonna say Buffalo.
Oh yeah, they do. I totally missed Buffalo. Buffalo is definitely the best.
But I'm with you, man. I think if the Browns win this week, they're winning next week. I just don't think the Steelers is as good as advertised right now. I guess Deshaun, Houston, we should give Houston some credit because Houston does have J.J. Watt and Deshaun Watson, but there's problems with Houston from top to bottom. There's obviously dysfunction there. So beating Houston isn't, we got to give them credit to 3-0, but I thought they was going to get exposed this weekend by Tennessee, who I did just rack on Tennessee, but this was pre-COVID Tennessee. Pre-COVID Tennessee scares me. Post-COVID Tennessee don't. It's a virus, man. Like, you have a virus. You can't practice for 2 straight weeks. Like, you can't not practice for 2 straight weeks of football.
That's going to be a problem, right?
That's going to be a huge problem for Tennessee. Tennessee is not going to be the same team when they come back. So there's that. But apart from that, they haven't really played anybody.
Yeah, well, they haven't played anybody. The problem is they're not going to play anybody. So
yeah, no,
they might be a playoff team this year just by dint of who they've played.
Well, that's why I think. Yeah. So
who knows? Maybe I think the Browns are going to take them to school. I think the
Eagles will give them a tough game. Eagles will give them a tough game. And then Carson Wentz, because Carson Wentz is under a lot of pressure this game, but the Eagles won't play them tough this game. They should bench Carson Wentz. They should bench him. Seriously, Carson Wentz. Your time has come. You suck. You trash. You trash Carson Wentz. You're trash. Carson Wentz is trash. I don't care what nobody has to say. Carson Wentz is fucking trash. I mean, dude got 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. What's your excuse, Carson Wentz? What's your excuse?
I don't understand why he hasn't been benched yet. But so anyway, that was a real quick overview of the Steelers. But the Ravens, real quick, their schedule a little bit tougher than the Steelers, it looks like.
Yeah, but the Ravens are the Ravens.
Well, the Ravens are the Ravens, but the Ravens have been winning decisively when they've been winning. Like I said, I think the Chiefs exposed them a little, so I think anybody who plays the Ravens now has a bit of a blueprint about how to beat the Ravens. Like I said, I think just, like make Lamar make mistakes in the passing game and understand that he's just going to run all over you. Like manage the running game, I think, is the best. I think that's the best approach to the Ravens is just they're going to run. They're going to beat you in the running game. But if you can just manage the damage that the running game does and then make Lamar make mistakes in the passing game. Because if Lamar has a great passing day, you're done. But if you can make him have, a sub 100-yard passing day, make him turn over the ball a couple of times, then you're going to have a chance to win.
The Ravens schedule was easy too. Oh my God. The Ravens schedule was a cupcake. The Ravens
everybody in our division has a cupcake schedule. The Steelers have a particularly weirdly cupcake schedule.
I know. They're so lucky.
Oh man. But the Ravens do. They have the Colts, the Patriots, the Titans, the Steelers, all all in a row, and then the Cowboys, and then the Browns. That's a gauntlet they're going to go through. Every team in our division has a gauntlet this year, except the Steelers. They ain't got no gauntlets. They have nobody. Worst thing is they play the Jaguars, who I think are a bit better than people give credit for, than the Ravens, then the football team, which that's nobody. They just benched Dwayne Haskins.
It's literally nobody. Literally nobody.
And then the Bills, and then the Bengals, which we already talked about. We both think the Bengals are going to win that particular game. And then the Colts, and then the Browns again. So to end the season, it's a little more difficult than the beginning of their schedule, but
the Ravens going to end the season. The Ravens.
Now, one thing though that is worth pointing out though is because of the whole Titans COVID thing, they do have to play 10 games in a row to end the season. So they don't get that nice cushy bye in the middle of that.
Yeah.
So that might be a problem for them, and that might balance out how easy their schedule is. But at the same time, like I said, I think they're a playoff team this year, and I think it's maybe not mostly, but I think a big part of why they're such a dangerous playoff team this year is because of that schedule that they have. But I think that also means that come playoff time, they're going to get exposed when they play that first round in the playoffs. And I think, whoever plays them is if all you got to do is figure out that, pass rush, and then, they're just a team like anybody else.
Can you imagine Lamar Jackson being 0-3 in the first round? Can you imagine Lamar Jackson being 0-3 in the playoffs? Oh boy!
Actually, I posted on. I posted on Facebook the other day. That Scooby-Doo meme where they're unmasking the villain. I on top of the mask I put Lamar Jackson's face, and underneath the mask was Andy Dalton's face, and it's let's see who this primetime quarterback really is, and it's now don't get me wrong, is Lamar Jackson a better quarterback than Andy Dalton? Yes. But so far in the playoffs he's looked about the same. I don't know.
I think man, look, all right, look at the Ravens schedule. We already talked about. I think they're gonna beat y'all. They're gonna beat Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, New England. Though I think that I think New England's gonna beat them on Sunday night at New England. I'm gonna go with New England on that game, and I think they're gonna beat. And then other than that, I think they're gonna win the rest of the game. I think they're gonna finish 14-2 or 13-3. But I think
here's the thing.
I think the Patriots are gonna beat them.
I think none of these games, or none of these teams, except maybe the Eagles, I think don't stand a chance against Baltimore. So, like, you know, I said I think the Bengals are probably not going to beat the Ravens, but I do think they're going to make it interesting, and I think they could beat the Ravens. The Eagles are not going to beat the Ravens. The Steelers, I mean, you know, maybe they are maybe they are really good, and they're, you know, they've just been playing teams close because why the hell not? I don't know. But, you know, the Steelers are an undefeated team, so maybe they could beat the Ravens. Like I said, I think there's a formula to it. The Colts with that defense, I think they could. I think they could slow them down. I think they maybe could do it. And then you said the Patriots. This is not the same Patriots team we've been dealing with before. But if Cam Newton's back, that Patriots team is dangerous. You got Titans. They're not all that good, but you know they kind of. They came on hot last year near the end, and that's week 11. So I don't know. I don't know what I would say right now, what I think the Ravens' final record would be. But I think they've got a much more difficult schedule than the Steelers have. I think if the Steelers end up, you know, I'm actually going to be honest. I think the Browns are going to win the division this year.
You think the Browns will win the division?
I would not have said that in the year, but 4 weeks in, y'all are 3-1, and I think you guys are beatable, but I think the Ravens are beatable, and I don't buy the Steelers yet. So
I don't buy the Steelers at all either. I don't buy the Steelers at all either. You know, I think Roethlisberger has really been hit yet. He hasn't been hit yet. You know, he's 38-year-old.
He's been having some injury problems, you know, last couple of
years. Yeah. So wait till it gets cold. It's starting to get colder. It's starting to get colder, and he got some big defenses he's going to have to play soon. So watch out for that. Watch out for that. And also, you know, you never know. One of these teams might emerge. Like, you know, I mean, for all we know, Dallas get hot. Like Dak Prescott, he's been throwing some dimes. Like all Dallas do is get some stops here and there, and they can get hot real quickly. And next thing you know, by the time the Steelers play them week 9, they could be 500 or above 500. And that might be a tougher game for them. Tennessee could, you know, I keep on ragging on Tennessee about, you know, the whole COVID thing. But who knows, you know, with their system, with their coaching and everything, their atmosphere, maybe they pull everything together and maybe they're able to ignore the outside noise. And by week 7, October 25th, when they actually end up playing the Steelers, maybe they can pull it together and maybe crack a hit on Roethlisberger or two. And even Philadelphia, man, like, you know, Philadelphia still have a lot of talent. Philadelphia have a lot of talent on that team. It's just, you know, Carson Wentz is trash. Hashtag bitch Carson Wentz. So, you know what I mean? Like, you know, the Steelers, you know, the Steelers can, you know, they can always collapse, man. You never know. It's football, it's the NFL. You never know what can happen. So it's only been the first 4 weeks. So technically this is like, that's pretty much preseason, man. We really don't, if I'm being honest, we really don't know what can happen with these teams. Anything can happen. So I'm with you. I believe that the Ravens are more real than the Steelers are for that reason alone, because I just don't trust Ben Roethlisberger, period, point blank. I just don't trust him. I just don't trust a 38-year-old quarterback who had elbow surgery. Like, you cannot sleep on that idea. And if he comes back and he is efficient through 16 games of the season, then I would give him his props. But right now, I'm still very skeptical. Just like I'm still skeptical about the Browns right now too. But I think that the Steelers are going to start to look worse and worse as weeks go on. Because I'm with you. I think that they have a lot of holes in that team. And I think they're going to become more apparent as time goes on. And since we're talking about the Steelers, I got to drink to that. And I'm going to drink me some Crown Apple to that. Yep.
I would drink, but I'm out. It's empty. I mean, I got more in my fridge, but then I'll have less in my fridge later. On Twitter at Kyle Phelps 92, and you can find me on Facebook, which I believe is my username is it's facebook.com/the Phelps because I'm that fucking cool. And then where can they find you, Thomas?
You can find my YouTube channel. We do comedy videos, we do roller coaster videos, and all that bullshit. At the Blowdown page. It's called Blowdown page, Blowdown space page. You can find us on Twitter at Black Baker Mayfield. Yes, we have made 2 Black Baker Mayfield videos. Made fun of Kareem Hunt, all that great stuff. We got Black Trump videos, so don't get offended by that. You can follow me on Twitter at Thomas at tstar94, or you can follow our Twitter, our comedy Twitter, Cookout Entertainment, the Cookout Entertainment, or you can follow us on Instagram at the Blowdown page. Just look for that black arrow pointing down. That's what you look for, black arrow pointing down. And that's all I got. All right.
I plan on getting into a couple of different things myself, but right now I'm just a guy who talks about the Bengals on Facebook and Twitter, and we're doing a podcast here, and I'll do some more stuff later, but we'll figure that out as we go along. Right now, if you like the podcast, all I can really ask is just that you tell other people about it. We're going to be, I think part of what we're going to do is we're going to like synthesize some of this down. I mean, we're going to have the whole podcast up, but we're also going to have like clips of certain parts that can, be shared. If you like what you hear, just send it to somebody, or maybe trash talk somebody with some of our clips. That'd be great too. Whatever you want to do, just let other people know about it. Eventually, once it gets up on various different things, like on YouTube, you can like and subscribe. On the other platforms, eventually, maybe you can give us a good review or something. I might set up a Patreon one day, but right now, just like and subscribe on YouTube. Find us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening, everybody. It's been.
I got one more thing I want to say before we log out. Carson Wentz, you're trash.
Yeah, Carson Wentz is trash.
Okay. All right, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah. All right. So thanks for listening, everybody, and go Bengals.
Go Browns.
Go Bengals first, but okay. All right. Let's see.